operator. He got 4 individuals.
You can make it here in America if you're willing to try.
I'm with you, the American people.
A new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
Now we are in danger of being swamped by Muslims.
G'day and welcome to the Cunspiracy podcast. My name's Josh Wade. I'm in my turtleneck, so get ready for a fuckwit conversation. Just kidding. This week's episode is a big one. It's a heavy one. If you enjoyed the episode with Jared Wright from the Big Les Show, you're going to absolutely love this one. I'm talking to Phillip J Watt, who is a journalist and speaker who specialises in sort of the way that the world is, explaining how the world is, explaining ways that the world should be going. If you're into the universe, the law of attraction, I really don't even know how to sum up this episode. It's one hell of a ride, and if you're into some really deep thinking and you really want to go down some I suppose dark rabbit holes, then this is a very, very fascinating chat. Phillip J Watt, all of his links will be in the description below. You can look up more, but if you just stick around, just give this 5, 10, 15 minutes, and I promise you'll be hooked. You're going to love the show. But I'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy the episode. G'day and welcome to the Cunspiracy podcast. My name's Josh Wade, and on today's episode I have Phillip J Watt. Phillip, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Good to have you. I guess now you've drove up from Ballina.
No, Belgium.
Mm-hmm. Where the fuck is that?
About half an hour west of Coffs Harbour.
Yeah.
It's like a Nimbin, but a less hippie version.
Oh, so there's better Nimbins that exist.
Well, it's got a very rich history of activism. That hasn't allowed any big, corporations or multinationals in there. So there's no McDonald's or anything like that. And it's just a small town that, it's divided like most of society in many ways. But there is a strong sense of community and, I guess, resilience against any sort of control mechanisms that sort of characterise their day.
Right. So have you always been from there, or did you move there for that reason?
Well, Nicole and I had an attraction to that place, her more so than me, for a longer time. But when we were deciding to move away from Sydney, from sort of the dense energy of those city structures, we decided to move to the mid-north coast somewhere. So we went to Crescent Head there for a while. Yep. And then that was a little bit too small and a little less active than what we wanted. Yep. So we thought, why not Belgium? And as it turns out, I did some family history research when we decided to move there, but we hadn't actually moved there. And our family, our side, my mother's side, is connected to the original settlers of Belgium. So I personally have got a rich history. It's in the cellular DNA sort of structure, and it sort of feels like I'm sort of home, I guess, in many ways than what I have felt before.
So you feel almost spiritually connected to that?
Well, I feel spiritually connected to life at large, mate.
Okay.
But
that's a good way to look at it.
But I certainly do feel like there's a synchronicity or a symbolic meaning for me to return there. And we can talk about that later. That sort of goes into the area of neo-shamanism and energetic healing and the process of interacting with your environment in a way to not just facilitate the health and growth of the self, but also of the localized energy and reality at large as well. So.
All right. So for anyone that doesn't know what you do, give us sort of a quick roundup on what you do now, and then later on down the line we'll get to sort of the story of where it started, what you used to do, and how you've sort of taken this journey to where you are now. So what are you up to now? What do you do?
So I'm a writer / sort of journalist. I more do opinion pieces in many ways, but I do journalistic, analysis on some of the critical issues.
All journalism today is opinionism.
Well,
so don't fall into
so.
that trap. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but
I'm selling propaganda, guys.
Yeah. Everyone is.
But we've all got a bias. That's right. We've all got a the information that we convey is propaganda, but hopefully that information greater aligns to what the truth is. And so what I try and do is challenge the mainstream narratives, because when moving on a long time into my journey, I sort of realised, well, hang on, I'm aware of all these truths and these understandings, but they're completely separate or misaligned or aren't supported or reinforced by the mainstream or narratives or officialdom, so to speak. So that's the work I do now, is to help bring greater truths to the world. My audience is mostly international. I write for international websites on mindfulness and societal growth and spirituality, those sorts of things. Right. I have a YouTube channel called The Conscious Society, where I did a series last year called the Redesigning Society series. And that project aimed to identify what I believe are some of the core problems that we face in our day and age, both philosophical and systemic, as well as identify the potential solutions to them. So what I did is I interviewed who I believe some of the real leaders in our world today, not within the mainstream channels, obviously, those people who are willing to stand up for the truth and actually challenge what the status quo is, from both a philosophical perspective, as I mentioned, as well as how the social system actually works and what potential way we could design it to make it beneficial to the needs of us, the environment, planet Earth itself. So that series, I think it was about 19 people I interviewed for that, which I've recently converted into a podcast platform, and that's called Redesigning Society Podcast with Phillip J Watt. Okay. So I'm a writer, a journalist in a way. I interview people. I really try and capture information that provides a holistic snapshot of where we are today. Try to contextualise it historically in a sense, but also where we're moving forward as well, how we could potentially move forward. So, and one of the ongoing themes throughout my work is that we are going further into a control system, a centralised dictatorship that doesn't respect sovereignty and natural law and freedom and honours the individual experience. So we're moving more into a collectivist world, an involuntary one, where we're being forced to think and feel and act in certain ways. And many people know this. Many people feel that I don't really want to believe what you're telling me to believe, or I don't want to feel what you're telling me to feel. I want to feel free in my choice to create myself and to live my life how I want. And that goes through many different layers in terms of behaviours and political correctness and this whole situation around cannabis, which I'll definitely elaborate on later, and a whole series of stuff that we are being forced to moulded and shaped and brainwashed and conditioned into a particular package of a human, and that falls into the materialist paradigm as well, as well as so that's the philosophical stuff, as well as how we contribute to society through jobs and all the rest of it as well. So it's been an amazing journey of an awakening journey for myself. Like, it's not like I've got all the answers. The guests on my podcast don't have all the answers. Nobody does. A lot of people understand that humanity is going through a consciousness expansion process, which is called the awakening, or people are waking up. But a lot of people get to that stage, and it's like they get to a plateau, and they're like, all right, that's it. I know all the fucking answers. I've got this shit covered. And I find that's very limiting. And it's also very damaging and destructive for not just the self, but also how we can come together as a people to bring a bit more honour and justice and truth to our world. So, it's important on that journey of awakening to understand it is a journey. There is no end point. We might get a lot of big concepts. And I also find that a lot of people condemn others because they're asleep. They're called the minions of the system, or the robots, or the people who are perfectly designed byproducts or products of the status quo, and they condemn them. But I just think, well, I used to be like that.
But it does work the other way around, because I've seen that it feels like there's a negative connotation to saying, oh, that person woke, or something. Like, it's almost a meme, a joke, or like, the tinfoil hat thing, when it's just easy to sort of throw out these in all categories.
You're just a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, which, when you use that word, that word was actually obviously just made up by the CIA in a way to dismiss the whole JFK thing. That word was...
It's a massive psyop.
Yeah. So now for people that don't understand sort of, or where they are, if they're just beginning at this whole thing, what you're sort of talking about is, I always hate using this phrase, but a new world order, in the idea that not sort of your silly YouTube videos about a new world order, but on a bigger scale of, like you said, with philosophy and just sort of every facet of life is starting to turn into sort of this agenda where it's all the same. I met this girl the other day and she was crying next to me because it was this Asian girl. She was crying because she her nose wasn't like her friend's nose, and she thought that she wasn't pretty if it didn't look that. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around what she was upset about, but it was almost like it was this experience where I was like, holy shit, everyone wants to be like someone else. No one wants to be themselves anymore. There's this attraction to being anything but who we are on the inside. No one really gets to know who they are. It's almost like to be in touch with yourself and who you are is almost not the right thing. It's all externally based, I feel.
It's very deliberate too. People don't. The power structure, the power pyramid, whatever you want to call it, the corporatocracy, the people, the ruling class or the ruling arse, like I like to call them, or the
who
elites.
are they for people that don't understand?
Well, that's a convoluted question. You can look at it through the Zionist paradigm or the Jesuit paradigm. You can even go into archons. It goes right deep into the depths of spiritual warfare and interdimensional life forms. So I could elaborate a bit on that later. But ultimately, when it comes to this power structure on this particular, in this moment, in a material sense, it's really defined as those with the money makers, and those the ones who are connected to the secret societies, to the think tanks, to like the Council on Foreign Relations. But it really is across all ideology and religion. It's not necessarily just the Zionist Jews or the Vatican and the Jesuits. It could be connected. There's lots of allegations around Satanism and pedophilic tendencies.
Well, that's a trap that we can go down, because that I am almost 100% certain. Now, if you say this on face value, people just go, that is insanity. But from little things that I saw, I spent a little bit of time in America and around some like D-list celebrities. I would say they're, higher than me, but
what are you and E?
Mate, I'm a meme. That's what I am. I'm not even in the
You've done
category.
Fucking excellent.
I'm past Z.
You got an amazing voice, mate. This is a great platform to bring the narrative to Australians, a lot more clarity and understanding about where we are. So that's why I want to come in, mate. It's great to be here to be able to help contribute to such an important platform for Australians.
Thank you. But there's so much to cover, and like now I'm going down a total other track. But like there is, I'm almost 100% certain there's some weird Aleister Crowley type fucking sexualized ritual type shit that's going on in Hollywood right now. I don't know how that's related to the whole big thing, but there are people out there that are practicing rituals and stuff like that, and they want to bring on all these different, like, well, I had one guy say to me, so I had a friend that I'd met who was a 33rd degree Freemason. He had the ring and everything, and he was a really nice guy, and he was much older than me. He was like this 45-year-old Texan guy named Sid, right? And it was almost like he'd come to me out of, like, we had to sit on a bus together for like, I don't know, it might have been 3 or 4 weeks. I was on this tour over in America, and I was with some DJs and that, and I don't even know how I got there, but I'm on this bus, and these DJs, they'd do sort of their thing during the day, and I was just there sort of filming some stuff, just helping them. I don't really know what I was doing there, but I'd sit at the front and I started talking to Sid. And Sid mentioned to me that he was a Freemason, and because we were talking about 9/11 or something like that, and it was my first
great waking up catalyst for so many people.
9/11, yeah, that's sort of a can of worms.
And so is the pedophilic aspect as well.
Well, that's a fucking rabbit hole, and it terrifies me. It almost
there's no middle ground with pedophilia. You either love it or you fucking hate it. All right, and once it gets exposed that there are, and it's not just in the elite echelons of society, it also filters right through society. There is a lot of issue when it comes to sexual abuse of both children and people.
What the fuck is it? Because I was talking to a friend the other night, and I know this is a really controversial thing. This is what we were discussing. I'm not saying that this is what I believe or anything, but this is what we were discussing. We obviously have since, let's say 2012, the way the world was in 2012, only a few years ago, as opposed to where it is now, is such a fucking crazy difference. Like, it's just shot into this different reality that we're now, obviously, and I'm not against it or anything like that, but we have, the Caitlyn Jenner thing, and then on top of that, you've got, men that identify as women but are attracted to other women, which means they're a lesbian. There's this whole different world out there that probably always existed. I'm sure it always existed, but wasn't necessarily that mainstream narrative. Is that sort of stuff a mental illness, or has it always been in humans? Is it a part of human evolution? And how far does that go? Does it go to, you hear the crazy Christian people that argue that, well, as soon as you let gay people get married, they're going to start fucking animals and wanting to marry animals. How far does it go until it reaches a point where it's like, no, okay, that's not acceptable anymore?
It's very real that we're all different, and there's nothing.
Of course,
there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If you want to be homosexual or identify with more feminine traits, there's nothing wrong with that. Go for it. The issue with this particular issue is that it's being used as a divide and conquer strategy, right? It's being amplified in certain ways. It's causing further division in society because people are wanting to have their aspects of their authenticity and their self celebrated and are not worrying about what else is going on. So that what it does is it keeps people fighting amongst themselves in their own little sort of bubble,
right?
Without us all sort of getting together and sort of focusing on the big picture. Now, it's a good question also because we have masculine and feminine energy in all of us, right? We're on a spectrum.
Yep.
We're on a spectrum of testosterone through to estrogen. Okay,
I got a lot of fucking feminine in you, in me, not in you. I'll put some in you if you want, but no, I definitely have some feminine energy for sure. I'm in touch with mine.
I've never been come on to like that. That's the first for sure. But yeah, no, me too. I love tapping into my own feminine aspects. I mean, I'm born with a lot of natural testosterone in myself.
No, I'm not.
And through the process, that process of learning about myself and connecting with myself, I realised some of my feminine aspects and traits were being suppressed. And so there's a few themes I want to go through today, but authenticity is one of them. And authenticity is connecting with yourself and connecting with others and the world at large in the most genuine possible way that you can, right? To be the authentic self. And we have been conditioned and programmed and forced to be things that aren't necessarily natural, or it's distorted natural aspects of ourselves, and we're focusing on too much on one thing, like left brain thinking, which is the masculine, linear, sort of analytical, logical aspect of the body, the biology, instead of, as a society, really connecting with our right brain, or the feminine aspect, the divine feminine, which is about creativity and intuition and that nurturing aspect of ourselves. So a lot of us don't know how to nurture ourselves. We're from a very early age, we've been put through an indoctrination process called school, which teaches you left brain information and doesn't create a holistic sort of synergy of energy within yourself. Right? And so we've come out of that knowing how to be good little minions of the system, get a job, and we've got a lot of expert minions who are really good at questioning within the paradigm, but they don't understand that the paradigm itself needs to be questioned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
So the spectrum of feminine and masculine that we're on, it's through these types of propaganda campaigns and psyops, it's really stop people from connecting to all of the layers of themselves.
Right.
So one particular layer is being accentuated. So it's funny because when it comes to male and females, if you've got male biology, you're a male. If you've got a lot of estrogen in you and your feminine is being expressed a lot more than your masculine, well, that's fair enough. That's what you're experiencing. You've got a lot of that. That's part of your biology.
But gender and sexuality are these two different things, right?
Absolutely.
And that was something that I never really understood. And really, to be totally honest, the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing was... I didn't understand it until that happened. Like, that actually... It did do what it was supposed to do, which was bring that sort of issue into the mainstream. And as a kid growing up, I never separated gender and sexuality. I just thought, that they would... I didn't understand how the trans thing even worked or operated. And to an extent, most people don't. Most people still will never understand. And I'm still learning how it sort of works. But the spectrum seems to be so large that, there's people out there, and people turn this into a joke, but there's people out there that say there's like 300 different genders or 45 different types of genders that you can have, and
there's an infinite amount.
There's an infinite amount.
Yeah,
so
there literally is, because we've all got the gender or the spectrum of masculine and feminine within us. So how we express that is a very individual thing, and that's why it's an infinite thing, because there is no such thing as just a male or female gender. It is completely intertwined, and that's the big message out of this process that is happening. What's happening in that area. The problem is that this dialogue, this discussion on it hasn't been happening. All it is that, that person's labelled himself as that, and that person's labelled themselves as that, and through that process, the authentic self is being suppressed.
Right.
So
okay.
the explosion of all that type of energy within ourselves isn't being celebrated on an individual scale or a collective scale. We don't understand that's an actual part of who we are, and instead we're focusing on one, maybe a prominent energy, but an energy still that is connected to all this other spectrum that I'm talking about. So
is being attracted to an animal though a sexuality?
Well,
like, where this is the thing that me and my friend were discussing the other night, just out of debate, just going, where is it? I don't know. Like, I don't want to fucking trigger people. I'm just genuinely just trying to play devil's advocate on this point. Because there are people that are,
people are attracted to bloody exhaust pipes and cars.
Yes, I understand. This is what we were talking about. So where does it keep going? And should everyone just be like that? This is what it is, or does there reach a line that we go, okay, that's not okay? Like with children, that's not okay. That's to me, that is so insanely fucked up. But in the last few years, so much has changed. Where is this going to keep going? If it keeps happening, how far does it go? Where are we going to be in society in 2050 with sexuality and gender, and where does it going? Does it ever end?
It's both a biological thing and a conditional thing, or a programmed thing, right? So yes, there are people biologically, no doubt, who are attracted to kids. And that's something that they need to fight within themselves and heal within themselves. It could be based on DNA, cellular. It could be maybe some in the womb type stuff. But that's going into the area of conditioning then. So the subconscious wiring, the trauma, and all the rest of it. So maybe a subconscious something that's now subconscious, like a trauma that we had as a kid, is amplifying a particular biological or neurological aspect to ourselves that it's translated into yes, I want to go and have sex with kids, right? But
that just fucking.
But the other thing is that we all have the darkness and the lightness in us, right? We are not just made of like pure divine energy. We're on a spectrum. This is a duality. A duality is one layer of the truth, and a monism or a oneness is another layer of the truth. In fact, there's so many layers it goes right down into affinity again. But what that means is that we are living in a dualistic construct. And please, I've been writing about this stuff for so long that if I use terms that don't make sense yet, just fucking pull me up and make me elaborate on them.
Okay.
But duality meaning left, right, up, down, good, bad.
Checkerboard, black and white.
Yeah.
Freemasons.
And so we do have all the light and all the darkness within us, right? So our conditioning and our biology might be generating certain darkness in a certain way. And that might translate into person wants to have sex with kid. But what this issue really falls back on are two things: natural law and sovereignty, okay? Or freedom. And kudos to your conclusion in your documentary, by the way, too, because it isn't just a fight for getting cannabis legalized. It is a fight for freedom, the free choice, the sovereign being, which is what we innately are, to be able to freely choose what we do and how we do it, as long as it doesn't contradict natural law. And natural law, you'll have to look into Mark Passio's work to really understand how deeply complex that can come. But as a simple way of describing it, natural law is do no harm, unless in self-defense. Honour your contracts, honour your word, have some integrity and honour about yourself. Respect your sovereignty and respect other people's sovereignty, just like you should be your own. So that means you don't, force people to do anything, including kids who aren't conscious enough to make those decisions, as well as animals as well. And essentially, don't be a dick. Just be a good person yourself and be a good person. Treat others how you want to be treated. Golden rule, right?
Yeah.
That's really, really simple. So that if any of these behaviours are encroaching or contradict natural law and the principles of sovereignty, then it's inappropriate.
Right.
At the moment, we've got this thing. One of the paradigms of ethics that sort of dominates our consciousness, our collective consciousness at the moment, is this moral relativity. And what that means is it's okay to do something in this circumstance, but it's not okay to do it in that circumstance. So the moral behaviour is relative to whatever the circumstance or experience is. Now, that's completely incorrect. Morals are absolute. At the very core, that's what natural law stands for, is absolute morals. So we might contradict ourselves. We might do something, have done something wrong 5 years ago or 10 years ago or yesterday. And we now realise we've become conscious of it and we've gone, well, that it contradicts natural law, it contradicts what my true ethics should be in this particular moment. So I learn from it and I evolve. But once you learn that lesson, you need to keep on applying it in all circumstances. So where does it go? Well, who knows, mate? What we're faced with is two potential pathways. We might be going into this totalitarian, New World Order, global government, dictatorship, centralised system.
Are we already in that, though?
Well,
I feel like we already are.
In a sense, yes, we are.
In a shadow way.
But we've still got an opportunity as sovereign nations or so-called sovereign nations to undermine it, just like, for example, Iceland did with their arresting their bankers and all the rest of it. They've still got a long way to go.
A step further than anyone else.
Absolutely. And so this is where, this is why I try and help people to put down their differences, all right? Whatever the fuck you perceive differences are on each other, and you might be warranted. You might genuinely disagree about something and you're not going to resolve that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the bigger picture is where we need to come together on and focus on either are we going further down this path of a centralised control system, or are we going down the path where we decentralise, where we relocalise decision making, so at the community level, make your social system structure less corruptible, all right? And one that honours natural law, sovereignty, values, the true pursuit of human spirit, not just telling us and dictating us what we should do, but actually honour the individual choice and where it goes.
Sure. I know if you're watching this, we're covering a lot of subjects, and it's this whole conversation is such a complex thing, because you jump onto one thing and then you jump back to something else, and it's just it's a never-ending rabbit hole. It really is a red pill. So
with many tunnels of truth and untruth, and that's where we've got to be discerning. That's
the other thing,
because we might get stuck in a paradigm of thought or wormhole that might actually turn out to be a psyop, which is For those
Yes.
who don't understand, a psychological operation.
Yes.
Meaning it's put there on purpose to,
Yes.
to distract us and divide us further.
Yes.
Because that's what they want.
Well, the 9/11, the JFK thing, I almost feel like the psyop in that is that they ultimately want it to be a conspiracy, because the more that people have all these different theories on what happened, the more that no one will ever know. And it's just one thing. Like, I was watching this, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary Everything's a Rich Man's Trick before, but it's a great...
I think so.
It's basically about it's basically about
central banking wars and
how for the first time in history in the early 90s, in the early 1900s, there was the first group of people in the world that actually had more money than countries or anything like that. Like, these people had realised, who are, the people that are running our society now, or the dynasties that are running our society, had realised that war is obviously an extremely profitable thing, and that they could run businesses not in their town, not in their country, but throughout the entire world. And
transnational monopolies.
Yes. So, the people that built the train tracks to Auschwitz were American companies. The people that made the gas, to kill the Jews was Bayer, who make fucking Barocca. And just how it just keeps going down the line of how many sections and different sectors of business realize that this is fucking awesome. And the fact that Germany was really just set up to be destroyed to then be bought, and it's the Cold War.
Both
it's still going.
wars were bankers' wars.
Yes.
Created on purpose.
Yes.
To consolidate power further.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, I remember finding out when I was in grade 11 or 12 about the Windsors changing their name
From Germans to English.
Yeah, and that Prince Philip and all, they are all Nazis. The Henry Ford was
neo-Nazis.
It's all run by that, and that
which is another faction of that elite power structure.
Yes.
That it's really difficult to ascertain.
fascist, and then you have the Nazis that under Project Paperclip, which you can go look into that, or Operation Paper, whatever the name was, Paperclip. That was the of basically the Americans going, right, we're going to get all the the fascist Nazis that were high up in Hitler's regime, and
incorporate them into their structure.
And what we are seeing now is essentially what Nazi Germany wanted. I almost think this totalitarian
False vaccinations, complete theft of the sovereignty of our society.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But there's another thing. I saw a video not long ago of Pauline Hanson saying, she came out against the vaccines, and that's a subject that I don't want to go into, because that is a divide and conquer one, like the gender, and but that's a rabbit hole, that one, because I sit on the fence with that one.
Some kids have reactions with their immune system to vaccinations. That's
to anything
that is really, really well documented.
Yeah.
The problem is that and I don't have a major issue with immunisations in and of itself.
Yeah.
The actual process of immunisation, but what vaccinations have is much more than just the ingredient to immunise. There's so much more in there as well.
Okay.
So I've written an article called I think it's Immunisations versus Vaccinations, refocusing the debate. And I don't go into any major conspiracies about depopulation. There's lots of conspiracies around a lot of this stuff. And I will talk matter of fact about what I feel is true, but I will also talk about what sort of the perspectives that are going in this sort of truth and freedom network. And one of them is that as a depopulation agenda, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, this article really just breaks it apart nice and simply. Let's just put it on the table. These are the sort of issues that are arising from it. There's all these people who are being secretly paid out for vaccine damage and all the rest of it. Let's just talk about it. Let's have at the end of the day, it's fucking stupid, because both sides want what's best for the kids. So they're fighting about this. We all want to take care of the kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's so stupid that we can't just have a rational, mature conversation about it and just go, well, all right, well, what are both sides are saying? Let's truly look at the evidence.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of doctors who are supporting the end of forced vaccinations and all the rest of it. So let's hear what they've got to say. Let's not just follow the mainstream narrative, the official channels for this information. And this goes for not just vaccinations, it goes for everything.
I just think anything forced.
Yes.
I just can't.
Well, it's against sovereignty. Again, it breaks natural law.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the law system is in contradiction. We live in an over-regulated nanny state where we're being forced to do these ridiculous things.
Yeah.
We don't need big government. For starters, we need to move away from big government, back into smaller government, back into decentralisation, as I mentioned, and more localised decision-making from a policy and practical perspective. But yeah, again, the whole law system, and I won't even go into the birth certificate contract with the corporation, which is registered at the US Securities and Exchange Agency.
A whole different
That's another
thing.
rabbit hole again. And again, that needs to be put on to the table for public debate. I think we need to talk about it. I don't know the absolute truth about it, so I won't say it is or it isn't true, but there are certainly some factors in that area that need to be honestly investigated. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's something shady about the whole thing, and it shouldn't be. But I remember having a discussion. I remember hearing the fluoride in the water thing when I was younger, and just thinking how ridiculous that sounded. And it's still a hard thing to discuss
ridiculous
with people.
That why would they put it in there if it was toxic for us? Or
just like they're not out to kill us.
Why would they do that?
Well,
That's the mass sort of perception is at the moment.
The excuse was always, well, it's good for your teeth. That's sort of that's why they put it in there, isn't it? That's their main selling point for the fluoride in the water, and
the official version.
But I've always thought as well that if it was a requirement that fluoride was in the water, then it would be by law we'd be forced to brush our teeth every day if they actually cared that much about our teeth, and it just something doesn't add up with that one either.
Fluoride, if you give free fluoride toothpaste to society, if that's really, really important.
So it's against sovereignty again.
It's mass medication.
But then the other thing is with that, and if I'm playing devil's advocate in it, it's not just fluoride, but when you're having a shower, there's all different chemicals in the water. Everything's killing you. It's one of those things. It's like, I don't think you can escape it anymore.
And that moves into self-sustainability and self-reliance. So having your own water tanks, growing your own food on a community level, making sure that you've got your individual and community sovereignty is reinforced by your own capacity to survive.
Yep.
That's that localization process. So one of the people that I interviewed on my podcast is called Helena Norberg Hodge. She's Swedish background but lived in Australia up in the Byron area.
She's a Swedish backpacker, yeah.
An older lady, an absolutely beautiful soul, and she talks about localization versus globalization.
I'm just imagining this tan.
Fair enough. It's
big boobs.
She probably was back in a day, but it is really about.
Look at us, two males just being total pigs, misogynist pigs.
Hi, babe.
Anyway, yeah.
And so she talks about localization versus globalization, and how globalization a major cause of all the destruction, the environment, and all this climate change debate. If people want to check out my Facebook page, I've just reposted an article I wrote last year on this whole Paris climate change deal and how bullshit it is in terms of actually resolving what the impacts we are having on our environment. So it's just fluff. It doesn't actually deal with the real issues.
Yep.
And people like Helena Norberg Hodge understand this and also reinforce that point. So I think I lost my train of thought there. We were talking about fluoride. So I'm involved as much as I can with my local community. I've only been there for 7 months, something like that.
Yep.
Community groups. I've met with the mayor. I've met with councillors. There is a real progressive, conscious team within the local government there in Belgium. Right? They've just got a new council in, and they are aware of a lot of these issues, which is fantastic because I spoke about fluoride with them, and they understand that it's a toxic substance and that it goes against sovereignty. And so if it's happening here in this community, it's happening in other communities, people need to stand up and actually get involved. We live here. We may as well get involved. We need to actually take some action on the ground, whether or not it's sharing information, whether it's joining particular groups, whether or not it's having respectable conversations. Like
Yeah.
one of the other issues I have with this whole sort of truth movement is, as I was saying before, people condemn them, and it's hypocritical to condemn people who are still sort of sleepwalking through life, because I was like that. We were all like that at some point. Unless we had super conscious parents, which is very, very rare, to help us to empower ourselves and enlighten ourselves from an early age, then we were dead asleep going through school. Very much so. We might have some understanding of corruption of politics or all the rest of it, but really undertaking that journey of awakening is a long process. And so just because we're at this particular stage now doesn't mean everybody else should be, and doesn't mean that we should condemn people. It doesn't mean we're better than other people either.
No.
And so people who think they've got this righteousness, whether or not it's a materialist righteousness, those who think, God's religion's stupid, God's not real, we're just separate matter, all the rest of it. Science is our God, so to speak, which is a whole religion in and of itself. Or whether or not it's the righteousness of those people who understand some of the bigger pictures in life. We are still equal. We're just at varying levels of development, and it's not just about having an intellectual development, so being aware of certain things, but it's an emotional development, philosophical development, psychological development, creative, behavioural, just the general developmental, energetic development that you've got of yourself. How holistically are you amalgamating or combining those layers of ourselves?
Yeah.
How developed have we got the balance going as well? But that doesn't, just because we've got different layers doesn't mean anyone's better or worse. It just means that we are at different stages of our own growth, our own healing and growth. So condemning people is ridiculous. The other thing that I really want to reinforce is that because if you go to social media pages like Hack or The Project or elsewhere on these news sites, there are a lot of people going, bullshit, calling the bullshit on the narrative.
Yeah, I saw that.
So many people are
The top
finally
comments.
understanding it. Good on you. Good on you, Australian society.
Yes.
You're showing that you've got some consciousness about yourself.
People know what's going on.
Absolutely
People
they do.
get it. And
this isn't just fringe stuff. This is this is going into the mainstream now.
yes, yeah, it is. It is. It really is. And the other thing, just to back up what you said there, it's okay to agree and disagree with people. It's not the be all and end all. And there's people out there that I agree with, and then some things that they say I don't agree with, and that's okay. And I'll never let that. I used to let that really affect a relationship or anything like that, and I don't now, because in myself there's things that I once believed that I don't believe anymore, and there's and it's gone the other way around where I've gone no way, and then now I'm for it. So I'm constantly evolving, and everyone is, and it's totally okay. Like I see people get so wound up when they don't agree with something, and I used to be like and I still am today, and then I pull myself back and go, hold on, just give it a sec.
As soon as you argue with somebody, defense mechanisms go up, nothing's going to get through. No growth is going to happen for either of you.
Yep.
So this is why my point was is that if you're going to comment on social media or try and rebut what somebody's beliefs might be, regardless of what it's about, do it like intelligently, articulately, spell it out. Have some good grammar and structure to your sentence, because as soon as people see a poorly structured sentence, you've lost credibility straight away.
I see a
like
few
it's
of
not
them.
It's not that bloody hard to put a full stop and a capital at the start of your sentence.
No.
All right?
No.
But be smart like that, but don't be aggressive. Be inclusive. Just go, look, I used to think like that too. I've now learned maybe a little bit more.
It might change someone's mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's how it happens.
And that's the approach I've taken with my writing the whole time. I haven't been condemning people. I haven't been belittling people. I haven't been forcing them. Hey, if you don't want to read or you don't want to agree, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
That's where you are. And I might be wrong anyway, so probably don't want to take me as gospel anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
I've got my bias and where I'm at, my particular perspective. But what I do try and do is authentically bring a structure of information, a package of information that I believe is more aligned to the truth.
Okay.
I'm trying to be genuine about it.
It's your truth.
I'm trying to
it's your truth.
present
Okay.
objective truth.
Yes, okay.
But it might be not exactly right in certain ways. So I've when I first started writing, there's things I would not write like that now.
Yep.
So I realised that I've evolved through my journey as well. So got to keep an open mind, but and try and absorb all different perspectives. Try and understand where people are coming from.
Yep.
They're obviously feeling passionate about it, regardless if it's conditioned or by free critical analysis.
Yep.
Free choice, free will. It's another subject we should definitely get into.
Yep.
But, just try and honour each other and understand that we're all sort of struggling through this process of the suppression of the authentic self. Where a lot of people aren't connected with themselves. They're too busy chasing the materialist, consumerist paradigm. Their priorities are skewed. They're too busy fighting, not even aware they're in conflict with their own self, but in conflict with so many other people too. And that is just such a waste of energy. And there's so much more beautiful, amazing, reverent ways to live.
Yeah, I was out the other day. I've got two things for you. I'm going to say this story and then there's another question. But I was out the other day and I was with a friend. This was on Thursday actually, and I went to Movie World. Not something I would usually do. Not something I like to do. I even come into this apartment complex that we live here now, and they've sort of got plants everywhere, but it's this fake construct of it just doesn't feel right. And going to Movie World was like, oh, here are all these rides that people come and get exhilarated on because that's what they find exhilarating. And that's, I don't mean to say that and to come from some sort of, higher, I'm looking down on you sort of thing, but I was just like, this is not something that I would generally do. But nonetheless, I was with a friend. She said, do you want to go to Movie World? I said, oh, okay, let's do it. And we were about to go, and then she said, should we take a joint? And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I got nothing on today. Let's do that.
Awesome shrooms are good at Movie World.
I haven't done shrooms. I haven't done DMT. I'm too scared to open up those doors just yet.
And we'll get in that conversation later because it's very important.
Yeah, okay, excellent. And we got there and we smoked this joint, and I was smiling, and I have depression and anxiety, and that's not something that I say in I don't fucking mope about it. It's just, it is what it is. It's cancer in my brain. It's just that's a thing that and it's human almost. Everyone has anxiety and depression. It's not, I don't like to put it in the category of mental health problems. That's life. Some people deal with it worse than others. And I've smoked this joint and I was smiling, and I don't smile that much in a genuine smile. Holy shit, I am boiling up in the inside with happiness smile, right? You know what it's like. And I thought, I cannot believe that it's illegal to be this happy. It's illegal to take something to feel this wonderful, and looking around and going, wow, I'm having a really great time right now, and I'm about to go in with a friend to go into this silly little world where we're going to get on these exhilarating things. It was just this little hint of information that I just thought, I don't know why I'm telling you this. Anyway,
why don't you have the sovereign choice to do that?
I can't understand that, because it was just such a happy moment,
a
really blissful moment.
Cannabis was originally illegalized not because of the medicinal aspect, but because of the industrial aspect.
Hemp.
So hemp.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Now, this is something that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in Belgium about revitalising hemp projects there.
Yep.
But hemp has thousands of uses: amazing paper, concrete, plastics,
T-shirts
wood,
at Lowe's,
fibre. Yep, the whole lot. We can pretty much create community sovereignty through hemp.
Yeah.
A biofuel as well.
Yep.
You don't need this massive oil industry. Biggest industry in the world. It's crazy. But we have an endocannabinoid system in our body. Have you heard of permaculture?
Yes. Yeah.
So permaculture, for those who don't know, is just an ethical design science, a science for how we interact with our environment and for a mutual benefit. So how do we take care of the environment but take care of ourselves at the same time? So food, shelter, all of our stuff that we need.
Yeah.
But one of the principles in permaculture, and it was just a natural principle, is that certain plants and things go well together. So for example, tomato and basil goes really well together because the basil helps repel the pests, which means that the tomatoes ain't getting smashed, and you're sort of managing the biodiversity of life and making sure that one pest doesn't get too out of control, that sort of thing. So that's called companion planting. You plant things next to each other. Our companion plant, is cannabis because of the endocannabinoid system in our body.
Yep.
And that's why it's such a powerful healing agent, because we have receptors on the cellular level that are designed to actually absorb the healing agents
Specifically
of this plant.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why it's so effective in helping kids' seizures and cancer. And there's two aspects to it. There's THC, which is good for getting stoned, if you like to do that.
Yep.
But also to help numb pain.
More of a head.
It's for pain relief.
Yes.
And if you've got nausea and stuff from cancer and all the rest of it, it's great for that. Other aspects to it as well. Probably not great for your schizophrenics or those who are susceptible to vulnerable mind states.
Yep.
All right, so you want to remove that aspect of it and work with the cannabinoids. And the cannabinoids are the ones that work on the seizures and all that sort of stuff as well. So
your CBD.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes. And so that being taken away from us is one of the greatest crimes against sovereignty that has ever happened on our planet. Because we have been working with this plant for eons. It's part of our structure, our biological structure.
Right.
It's not something that's just been recent last century or whatnot. It's only the last century that's been taken away from us.
Right.
So that combined with the chemical-rich food supply, all the crap in the water, the philosophical crap that the mainstream TV and mainstream informational channels give you, all that stress things. And I had depression for nearly a decade, mate, from young adult, teenage sort of situation.
I don't like saying I have depression or I had depression, because I feel like that's putting me in that mindset as well. That was a really great way to get out of it, was me going, oh, I'm depressed, I have depression, and almost putting myself in that state by saying, oh, well, this is something that because I just felt personally to stop saying that really
whatever
helped
works.
The most. Yeah.
I mean, I had to go through a full rewiring process.
Right.
So neurological rewiring, philosophical or conceptual redesign. So it took me years and years to rewire myself out of that, what might be labelled as depression. I never had anxiety, but I felt so disconnected from everyone, from myself, from the world. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy land. I'm living in crazy town. I've got all this social trauma. I've got all this other trauma. I don't know what the hell's going on. And I thought, well, I just got locked into this cycle of self-abuse. And then I realised that, hey, wait, I've got the power to do whatever I want here. I've got the power to be happy if I so choose.
Yes.
And to do that takes a long fucking time to make it our new default mechanism.
Yes.
So think of our body as a brain. Body is a brain, like a full brain. We've got the tummy brain, which is the second brain. So there's about 100 million nerve cells in your stomach. This is where all your serotonin and all that sort of those neurotransmitters are developed. You've got your heart brain, which is only about 40,000 neurons.
Your nervous system runs basically through your stomach as well, doesn't it?
And the spinal cord.
Yeah. It's the first thing I remember going to a psychologist as a teenager was her saying, "Do you breathe in your belly?" I didn't even understand that you could breathe in your belly, and it's obviously something you see babies do it, because that's what we're naturally, we come out of that. That's what we're supposed to be doing, was regulating our nervous system through breathing into our belly and giving us air into those sort of areas of the body. And as soon as I started doing that, and it's my one savior still to today, is just going, if I ever get my heart rate up, it's just going into my stomach and just doing that for fucking 30 seconds. And I tell you what,
that's meditation.
I'm back to normal.
It's a form of meditation.
I know.
Humour is a form of meditation. That's why humour is so bloody important. Scientific studies have shown that if you hook up, somebody to their whatever machinery, they can measure you going into an alpha brainwave state or a meditative state just by laughing. Humour, that's where humour is remedy. Humour, you laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. Sort of thing comes into it.
I don't laugh too much.
Yeah,
I do.
You probably bloody well should a bit more then.
I don't. I don't particularly find I'm a harsh critic when it comes to that. I'll go watch comedy because it's work, it's the job, out of interest to see, what's this comedian talking about? What's this, what's his craft look like? It's like me going to an art gallery if I was an artist to look at what else is going on. But very rarely do I find myself, and there's been a few times where I've gone to see comedians where I've totally just let go and just really enjoyed the moment. And it is such an amazing feeling to genuinely belly laugh, and it hurt.
Absolutely.
And me getting into comedy, I watched this fucking Ellen DeGeneres special when I was 13 years old. It was just on TV. I had no idea what comedy was. Really, I sort of knew the concept of stand-up comedy, but I'd never sat there and watched it. And for the first time in my life, I laughed so much that I was crying. I'd never had that experience before, and it was a euphoric thing that I'm still yet to have again. But that's when I made the decision that that's what I want to do.
So we're going to help people heal, in a sense.
Well, that sounds too self-righteous to me, though.
But it is. That's literally what comedy can help people to do.
Well, they say laughter is the best medicine.
That's right. Because laughter is meditation. Exactly why.
I just feel like I must have now. Unfortunately, it's a job in an extent now that you sort of lose touch with the special part of it, the part that really matters, because I'm spending more time thinking of ways to make people laugh than thinking of ways to make, myself laugh. And that's sort of, it's sort of like if you're Connor here, he makes movies and stuff like that. And I remember studying film, and now I watch a movie on TV and the whole time I'm just thinking about how they did this and how they did, like I lost the total appreciation of the art and the art. Yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to, no, you're right. I just want to tie up what we were talking about before, which is that personal development aspect. And so humour is really good for it. If you can't have a good attitude in life, then you're pretty much fucked.
Yeah.
So you're gonna amplify your stress. That stress is going to turn into disease of the body, and then disease of whatever manifests in a plethora of ways. So we need to take care of ourselves on all those layers I talked about before: psychologically, philosophically, sexually, socially. Your relationships, your creative stuff, how you behave, how you process your emotions, how you conceive life. Your philosophical picture is so important. We need to. It's called introspection. Is to really look at yourself and what beliefs you have. Are they even yours, or are they designed by someone else? Yeah, does it speak true to you? Does it make you feel good? These are sorts of questions that we really need to ask, and it can be a bit hard to face yourself. But it is hard to face yourself, and it's an ongoing journey of that. But yeah, so to think about your body as a total brain. You've got your three brains, they process information separately from each other, and then they connect up and they give us our conscious awareness, both our subconscious and conscious awareness. And so if that's why when people go on things like The Biggest Loser and they lose, a huge chunk of weight in a small space of time, and then they leave the show and then they put it back on again near immediately, it's because they haven't rewired their neurology throughout their body. And so you need to sustain that practice for months, if not years, to create that as your default wiring mechanism, so that from that point forward, your experience is to wire yourself and to respond to your environmental stimuli in particular ways. So that is where's that in school?
No.
Where is self-discovery? Where is respecting?
There's a few times that I fucking this class is boring, and went for a poo, very long poo. No, that actually did happen. I was a deviant, but self-discovery. I'm sorry to throw that in there.
No, absolutely. We need to, again, comedy straight up, mate. You've got to laugh about this shit. It is terrible. Education, there's an amazing amount of teachers out there. I salute them. Just like there's an amazing amount of police officers out there, even bureaucrats and politicians. Maybe not so much the politicians. We have an idiocracy that runs our country.
Once you get to that level, I think you're well aware of how the game works.
To an extent.
You don't just rock up.
The brainwashing of society, of collective consciousness, is very, very powerful. And so people, even in the political spectrum, might not even understand how money works, how money is created in our society. Might not understand that we have a corporatocracy, which is the alliance between government and big money and those multinational platforms we talked about before.
Well, it's like some of the biggest scientists in the world, all the smartest people in the world, still believe the Bible.
Materialism.
They believe that there is a Christian God, and that we've only been here for 2,000
And
years.
they've got the right to do that.
They totally have the right. No, that's totally fine. I'm not saying that they don't, but it's like this. You can do two things at once, can't you? You can be in two different places and sort of, like you said at the start, be in the paradigm, but not, know lots about what's in the paradigm, but not know what's outside that paradigm and staying in it.
Stuck in that bubble. But yeah, so our education system needs a whole massive reform on so many levels. People say, it should be the parents' job, but guess what? The parents didn't learn, their parents didn't learn. We're in a cycle of bullshit. Right? We've got an unconscious society. Why do I know that? Because I used to be unconscious. I still am in ways that I don't realise right now. We all are. Right? So this journey of consciousness expansion never ends. But I know where I came from, and it was completely brainwashed. I had no fucking idea what was going on in this reality. And that's where I went through spiritual introspection as a kid, as a teenager, young adult. And I started to realise that I had this connection between my internal, what was going on internally, and the external world. So I was having synchronicities and symbolic representations of what was happening within me. Right?
I have this quite a bit. The universe talks to me. There is times where things happen and I go, wow. There's a song that I play every day that I listen to when I work, and it's a bizarre, like it's just like an awkward, like I don't know how to explain it, but it's not a thing that I'm going to hear anywhere else. And when we went to Movie World the other day and I'm taking everything in, this song is playing over the...
It's a Truman Show, mate.
And I'm thinking, and I said to my friend that I was with, I said, look, I'm sure, you could argue that this is just a coincidence, but there's no way they're playing this song. This is bizarre. And I've recently, when I've been meditating, been sort of putting out there, speak to me in life, show me that, let me have these moments where I go, that is a really big coincidence, or you're talking to me. And since I've been doing that over the last few weeks, there's been so many things that have happened that I've stood back and appreciated so much more and gone, holy crap, that's bizarre. If anything, gives you almost chills, because you're like, there's
once you're open to it, you see it better. You're more, your perception is designed in a way to be able to pick up on the connections that we have with our so-called external realm. And that's why I've been joking about materialists, because materialism is a debunked philosophy. It's just a belief system.
Yes.
And it's turned into a dogma and in the mainstream science. So anybody who follows mainstream science as gospel has fallen into the trap of another religion, plain and simple. Right? And the problem, that what they don't recognise is consciousness, how consciousness fits into our model of reality. And quantum physics has been super clear about it, that consciousness does play some type of fundamental role. Now, whether or not it's completely fundamental, i.e. there's only one consciousness, and our body brain is like a radio that tunes into particular radio frequencies. And so our memories aren't even stored here. The memories are out in the Akashic field, or the collective unconscious, or the collective consciousness, or there's a whole gamut of different ways of describing the energetic grid that quantum physics has illustrated. Or whether or not it's this two sides of the one coin thing, where materiality is also very fundamental in this particular dimension anyway, as well as consciousness. I guess there's a lot of still potential for exploration and learning around all this stuff. But the fact remains that we are not separate from each other. We are entangled, which is a concept within quantum physics, so quantum entanglement, or non-local or action at a distance, what Einstein called spooky action at a distance, I think, from memory. I might have got that one wrong. But at the fundamental sort of framework of our reality, we are connected. Now, some people say that means that everything's one, and that duality, this separateness, is a complete illusion. And I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that either. I think that on some level we are one, we are connected, but on another level we are separate beings, man. Like I don't feel like I'm. The philosophy is called solipsism, and that philosophy means that everything is a state of mind, and everything is my state of mind. So none of you exist. You are just creations or imaginations within my manifestation.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I don't believe in that. I believe that you are just as real and as intelligent and as live as what I am, and Connor and Nicole and everyone else.
Yeah.
That we are co-creating within this entangled web of information, consciousness, and energy.
So are we we're the usernames on the computer that are all stored on the same hard drive. We all have our individual profiles, but it all comes under the one. It's all stored on the same drive, if you get what I mean. As
At least
analogy.
in this construct, yeah. I mean, who knows beyond that? You know, like you got to stay open to this sort of stuff. Who knows? Okay, so before we had the break, I was talking about the connection that we have with the external realm.
Yep.
Quantum physics has been clear about it. Parapsychology has been clear about it. It's not a pseudoscience. I've interviewed people like Dean Radin and Rupert Sheldrake. I really recommend that people listen to those interviews about understanding what the science says about ESP and how the internal and the external realm connect on certain levels. The other thing is psychology. Just the placebo effect and how mind states and mind operations have an actual physiological impact on the body as well as the environment as well. So they're three areas that have shown conclusively that there is something happening. There is some type of connection. And that connection is where practices like shamanism and magic and occultism come into the fray. They are pushing materialism on the masses because materialism means that we're separate and we're disempowered and we don't understand this connection that we have with our world, right? So if people don't understand the power they've got, then they're not going to empower themselves and enlighten themselves to the best of their ability in each moment, and become sovereign beings once again. So that's why materialism is pushed on people. We need to move into some sort of monistic idealism philosophy, meaning that there's mindness as a core component of our reality, and it's how we connect. It's how we can have a co-manifesting or co-creational process with what's going on in our experience. So magic is very real. I practice magic, a form of neo-shamanism, and what that means is just to filter the information of your experience and translate that into some sort of healing and growth within myself, as well as the environment at large. So the energy that I'm emitting and attracting, that process of connection with this interconnected grid of consciousness or energy or whatever, there's many names for it, or even just God. People use the word God.
Yep.
There is a process where we are literally having an effect on not just ourselves but the outside world as well. So these sorts of practices are very much embedded into this power pyramid. They do ritualize and practice what might be considered the dark occult or black magic.
Yep.
But there are people who practice white magic as well, which means that it follows natural law, sovereignty, and respecting yourself and the environment at large, including people and all the rest of it. So yeah, I really recommend for people to really explore that aspect of learning and experience. It's the magic of life. It isn't just this mundane, boring, situation where we're meant to be working 9 to 5 and not really having any authenticity about ourselves and really understanding what it means to be human and being this energetic blueprint, having it, which some people call the soul, having a human experience. There is so much wonder and awe to this life that I really recommend that people get in touch with that and learn about it and experience it, whatever that means for their own individual experience.
Yep.
For people who want to learn about it, I do recommend a podcast called The Higher Side Chats with Greg Carwood. I've interviewed him on my podcast. Really cool dude, nice and natural about describing these sorts of things. He doesn't try and make people think in a certain way.
Yeah.
He just tries to explore all these perspectives, all of which have their own problems. There's no one person that's got all the answers, as I mentioned before, but we certainly can sort of examine or listen to, investigate the plethora of perspectives in these areas and others to really, take a step back and get a bigger picture on things. So yeah, but where we're going to really finish up, because my writing, I think I mentioned at the start, focuses on spirituality. And I don't like using that term because it's been corrupted in a sense, tainted, like God. People hear it and they just go, "Oh, no, God, spirituality."
Yeah.
But really, it's about philosophical introspection and understanding the nature of reality.
Sure.
That's that, and how we're connected to reality. That's a sort of the connecting thread of spirituality. Personal development. We need to face ourselves, face our lies, our contradictions, our hypocrisies, our bullshit.
Yep.
What our traumas are, where we need to heal, and how we need to develop ourselves. That is an absolutely integral aspect of living right now.
Yep.
Not pretending like you know it all, not pretending like, focusing on just the other things. There's some really great stuff to focus on, but really becoming that authentic person and connecting with yourself and your heart is so important for as we move forward, into our future. And the other aspect is societal growth. So what's really going on in our social system? What are the elements of our social system that have been corrupted, and what potential solutions have we got to them? And that's where I think Australian comedy has a massive role to play. I know you love George Carlin, absolute legend. We need Australian George Carlin's stat, right? If the comedians in Australia right now need to start refocusing their material on what's really going on in our system to help encourage further enlightenment or understanding.
Steve Hughes does it.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
great. I don't know if you've seen him before.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that's it.
Needs to be widespread.
And that doesn't get you a job on Triple M for fucking $2 million a year. So
That's the
you got to play the
unfortunate
game.
aspects.
It's a game, though.
It's a balance. That's right. You've got it. That's correct. So I spent 10 years in bureaucracies. So I worked for the federal government as well as the state government. Most of it was policy development, project management in the first 4 years, as well as social work. So working with kids, families, and just people around healing growth, especially those with high levels of socioeconomic and behavioural and traumatic sort of dysfunctions and challenges in their lives, right?
Yep.
So working for FACS, or the old docs, is who I used to work for 6 years. And during that process, I stood up for what was right. There is a lot of toxic behaviours, there's a toxic culture within that organisation, just like there is with any organisation. But the fact that this is causing an impact on people's lives in such a dramatic way, i.e. kids being with their families or not, it needs to be brought to the limelight so that we can make sure that the staff are properly trained and make sure that the right policies are in place to make the right decisions for that family and for the community as a whole. So that I just recently released a letter I sent to Michael Coates-Trotter, who's the secretary of FACS, the main manager.
Can you explain what is FACS?
FACS is Family and Community Services, DOCS.
Yep.
So the people who decide whether or not these children stay with their parents or not.
Yeah, okay. Child services.
And what to do with them if they're removed. Now, I didn't remove any child for the 6 years I worked there, but I wouldn't have had a problem doing so if the kid's safety was at serious risk, no problem at all. But it never got to that for me because I just felt, this is a workable situation. I felt that I could help to minimise the risk and help these people understand what problems were in the relationship, either with the parents or the parents and the kids, and how to heal it and how to grow it. So that was the process I always took. I do a lot of lifestyle coaching, and so that's been my sort of role for the last sort of 6-7 years.
So an ethical outlook as opposed to a clinical by the book. Well, this happens here, so it says that I have to do this if this is the...
Life's a grey area. It's not black and white.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And so in that letter that I wrote to Michael, I identified, I think, around 22 issues within the organisation itself. But what was most important to me in that letter is that I contextualised those issues within the greater picture, which is the problems with our social system. And this is where Australian society need to put aside their differences to a degree whether or not they just agree to disagree about certain things, and rally around some particular focal areas to actually finally bring some honour, some justice, some truth, and some sovereignty, or this fight for freedom that you talked about in your documentary, for all of us. So what I've identified 4 core areas that we can focus on. I call that the 4 M's. So money, media, management, and medicine. So money, for those who don't understand it, money is created out of nothing just by punching numbers in the computer, right? So for the privilege of punching numbers in the computer, these banks are making billions of dollars a year. That needs to be a public utility straight up. Community-based banks creating money to fund social programs, community infrastructure. Period. There is no argument about this.
That's communism.
What, to help reinvest?
No, but that's how they would brand
Right,
that.
right.
That's how they would brand that as a, if Australia, if the Australian government printed its own money and did its own thing instead of having a bunch of wealthy people do that for them instead, and then get the government to commission them to do that, then that's how we genuinely define a.
So you want fascism
country.
where private stakeholders have transnational monopolies?
That sounds like more fascism to me than the other way around. But I'm just saying that's what they would say. Yeah. So money.
Yeah. So money is really important that we take a sovereignty approach with, and use it as a utility to start healing these social wounds such as poverty, homelessness, and all the rest of it.
Sure.
Right? I'm a believer in a basic income as well as we transition into an automated society. So AI, robotics, machinery, computers, they're going to be taking over a huge portion of the Australian workforce and the world workforce over the next, I think it's 40% over the next 10 years is estimated for Australia alone. So that's a lot of jobs gone. We need to have a basic income to support that transition. But it's really good because automating society means we free up all this bullshit, these mundane jobs. People like David Gruber, I think it's pronounced, has estimated that 20% of the jobs in our society actually add value to our society. So essentially 80% of people are going to work for fucking no reason whatsoever.
Just to be another
Just to be a
cork in
cog in
the
the
machine.
machine.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we need to transition to an automated society, but one that decentralizes, eventually probably removes money completely, because there's a good argument that money is an enslavement tool that creates excessive competition, greed, monopolization of, like tyranny, all these sorts of things. So if you can control something, then it's going to be abused. So if you take that mechanism out, then we can put. But
what about these like cryptocurrencies, which are like these ones that are almost self-regulating, that don't have a centralized system and aren't based on anything like oil or anything like that? I feel like personally, if this is the construct that we're living in capitalism, where you in the ideal world, the harder you work, the more you get paid, the more you're allowed to, but there's just too many loopholes in that where people get greedy and whatnot. But do you feel like if it went to a system that was self-regulating like that, then it would eliminate a lot of those problems, and the fruits of capitalism would probably shine a lot more than...
Yes, we've got socialism for the rich policies, the corporatocracy, which is the alignment between the banking and pharmaceutical and other major transnational monopolies, and government has just ensured that macro policy design suits them, not us, right? So that's why they've suppressed cannabis and hemp and all these other natural medicines, as well as taken over the money supply, as well as monopolised the media, turning into corporatised media that will tell you some truth, but it won't tell you the truth that I'm talking about here today, and more. So that's why people are frustrated with mainstream media. That's the second M, because, you'll get a bit of mindless entertainment. You'll get some truths about old mate robbed that servo, or this person won that award.
It's the crime report with the weather, mate.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. But you won't get the big picture truths because it doesn't suit their agenda, which is power and control. They want to maintain their power and control. So we do live in a society with a corporatocracy run by a ruling class or an oligarchy or, big money makers. And they've got their grip on us. This is basically subtle enslavement because it's debt enslavement and it's ideological enslavement. So that's what we have to break free of personally, to break free of the ideological enslavement. I'm forced to believe things like this and really question and go, hang on, I need to apply my critical thinking here and do robust independent research through the independent media, which is just exploding at the moment. Podcasts are exploding, independent media, which they all have their own issues. You have to be very, exercise wise judgment when it comes to investigating any informational source.
Independent media, I think, is being infiltrated.
Absolutely it has.
I mean, if you look at something like Alex Jones or something, that's a psyop. That guy's got a studio. That guy's got money. It's like Noam Chomsky said. It's this.
Noam Chomsky's been accused as
I know
control competition.
I know that as well, but everyone can be because everyone's got their own agenda. But I think he raises a very good point when he says that. If you're watching CNN and they're pro-Hillary and then you turn to another channel and they're pro-Trump, that's just all there for the illusion of
illusion of choice. Illusion of freedom.
Yeah. And
the left-right paradigm is one of the greatest divide and conquer strategies there is. And that's part of the aim of management. So management, we've got a two-party duopoly or a two-party tyranny that work for the same banking, pharmaceutical and other corporate big business interests. Right? So it doesn't matter who you vote for. Some micro policies are going to change, some of the on-the-ground stuff, but some of the big macro policies, like how you design banks. I mean, why haven't we got a Royal Commission into banking? Why do you think? Because we've got a Prime Minister who's an ex-managing director of Goldman Sachs.
I know.
Right? This is why we're not having these commissions. And not only that, but an authentic commission that actually creates reform. We need it. So I recommend people go check out Bank Reform Now. It's a Facebook page and a website. They're very, very active in creating reform in Australian banking in Australia. We need to get on these sorts of issues. But yeah, left-right paradigm, it's a two-party tyranny. We need electoral reform. I've interviewed somebody called Robert David Steele, who's an ex-CIA officer from America, and he has created a model for reforming our electoral process so that independent representatives represent their local electorate or their regional electorate, so their community, the needs of the community, instead of biding a toxic party line, that be it Labor or Liberal. And he's also outlined ways to remove big money, so get money out of the political spectrum completely, so that we don't have political puppets, so that we don't have this lobbyist cancer on our system, and we don't have this bribery and corruption stuff that's going on as well. Well, it would help minimise that a bit better.
Yes. You're never going to get rid of it, but it's rife at the moment.
When money's there, you're not going to get rid of it. And that's what I was talking about before, just quickly as well. One of the ideas around where we go into a future for a social system isn't just anarcho-capitalism. So anarchy has been abused as a word. It doesn't mean chaos. What it means is no rulers. So anybody who doesn't want to be ruled, right, is an anarchist.
That's the name of our production company as well.
Yeah.
For that reason, it's not for chaos, but there's
Absolutely.
no rulers.
Absolutely.
We don't really want to be on, under the guise of a Channel 7 or having something above us. So I love the word. I have affinity with it.
If you don't want to be ruled, you should.
Anyway, sorry.
No, you're right. Of course, I did see that actually. I forgot about that. Excuse me. And so anarcho-capitalism is one faction of this Truth and Freedom Network. What they're saying is that we want to go back to, some say no government, they definitely say small government, they definitely say decentralisation, and they definitely say let the free market look after itself, right? And remove all these systems, and then people are going to choose what they want. Monopolies aren't, they say that monopolies won't be created. I'm not so sure about that. I think
they'll find a way, mate.
I think so, and that's why I look at the other opportunity or potential, which is the resource-based economy. So if you look into Jacques Fresco's work, which is the Venus Project, or you look into Peter Joseph's work, which is the Zeitgeist Movement, or you look into Michael Tellinger's work, which is Ubuntu or contributionism. I've actually interviewed Michael on my channel last year. They all basically have the same premise, which is to create an abundance-based society where we provide all the needs that the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so food, shelter, medicine, all that's provided for free, and that you free up humanity for creativity, for innovation, for exploration. So if you want to be a musician or a comedian or a rocket scientist or a biologist or all of those things, you can. There's the education there to do so. You automate everything with the technology. We've got the best of the ability. I believe I'm pretty sure, I'm definitely sympathetic to this being a better way to expand the consciousness and evolve human society.
Yep.
That's what I would imagine is the right path. But at the same time, we might move into an anarcho-capitalist situation first and then move into an RBE later.
Yep.
Who knows? Who knows how it's
Yep.
going to happen? But as long as it's decentralisation, smaller government, community decision-making, sovereignty, natural law, authenticity, abundance, all those values, we really need to put those to the forefront of all of this mess. So media, I've talked about. Medicine, that includes food. So the war on drugs, oh my God, like what the hell are we thinking? The social destruction that this policy has caused is unbelievable. Increased gangs, crime, addiction, breakdown of families, of communities, all these unnecessary drugs on the street. I mean, the ice epidemic is a natural consequence of the war on drugs policy.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I wrote this thing this morning that I wanted to bring up, and I've got this other thing here that you'll like. But this morning I was thinking about the experience that I had at Movie World. I'm thinking the war on drug, or the war on cannabis specifically, is a war on a plant, which is so bizarre to me because a plant is a natural. Like that's using that logic, you'd have a war on air and a war on other, like these things that just exist and that they are like you can't because it's always here. It was put here before we were. Like you cannot anyway. But what you were just saying then about prohibition, this is a chart that I found that basically this is how prohibition works. So prohibition, what is it called? Prohibition something chart. So public thinks X is scary, authorities ban X to make public feel safe, no legal way to obtain X, value of X increases, black markets form, organised crime gains a new source of income, organised crime grows, frequency of violent crime increases, law enforcement uses harsher tactics, criminals get more violent, frequency of violent crime increases, law enforcement uses harsher tactic, and it just keeps going around in this, and it's just a violent fucking ball that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously now, like you said, you've got things like fucking ice, and what's next? What the fuck is next?
All these synthetic cannabis, like marijuana.
But that's been around for ages. I did that as a kid growing up, not understanding what it was or what
bad shit.
Oh mate, I was seeing fucking cartoons and everything like that. And then my friend that I smoked it with all the time, he went crazy. He literally ended up having this massive freak out, and I think it changed him. I really do. He's not the same. He's not the same person, and it's maybe he is now, but for a long time there, it was extremely upsetting to see that this is what this has led to. This is what it's led to. Absolute destruction. I mean, no one's, And the suppression of the exploration of our consciousness as well.
Where all we've got is alcohol to get drunk on the weekend, to forget how shit our week was. And then that's about it. Coffee, sex, cigarettes. Emotions. TV entertainment, this mindless entertainment is almost like a hypnotism of way. It's an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah.
We're altering our consciousness when we go to sleep and we dream. We're altering our consciousness every day at all moments. If we feel really high on love or fairly low on sadness, many ways we do it all the time. But we do it in such a with such limited parameters that we don't understand or celebrate what altered consciousness really is about. So for a natural way, I recommend meditation, but for other ways, I do recommend certain psychotropics as well. Just to go back to your prohibition thing, the thing it missed out on is that law enforcement also has a role in the supply of drugs as well. So certain factions within
here we
law
go.
enforcement.
This will be the last episode of the podcast, everyone.
But it's true. It's a matter of public record in America
I know.
that the CIA, and I mean, you've seen the pictures
Still
of
doing
the
it now.
soldiers protecting the poppy fields over in Afghanistan.
They're
and all
still
the rest of
doing
it.
it now in Afghanistan. They were doing it in Vietnam. They were doing it in Cuba. It's just a big, long...
The deceit and the corruption goes very, very deep.
But let's just make it clear, though, because I would always throw around the CIA and them funding ISIS and the drug deal and stuff like that. It's not the whole CIA. People need to understand as well that there's factions inside of groups. So in your,
Absolutely.
in your fucking Labor Party, there's the left and right of the Labor Party, and then there's inside of them, there's another element. So there's factors, but there are criminal parts of the CIA that have been doing this sort of stuff for their own personal gain and for, fucking other people that are paying these people off. But the CIA was always funded around working with organised crime. It's America's mafia.
Black op programs.
Yes,
all
that's
that
all. That's all it ever was, and all it still is.
You raised such a good point because I said to Nicole on the way here, I need to make sure that I remember to not make this an us versus them paradigm.